Okay.
Lesser gods, magical creatures, and heroic ancestors. There were dozens of gods in the Greek world, and thousands in the Roman, but most of these, including some major Roman divinities, such as Janus, Mithras, and Isis, did not feature largely in the world of myth. But those who do appear amongst the most common are the following: Sylvanus, or Pan, to the Greeks. The mother of Pan was Dryope, a nymph who may have been one of the Pleiades. Dryope had liaisons with several gods, including Hermes. Her child by Hermes was a hairy little baby with horns and goat's feet. So terrified was she at her first sight of the strange infant that Dryope ran away screaming, and Pan has been able to induce that sudden, unreasoning terror that is today called panic. Pan was adopted by woodland nymphs and ever after made the woods his home, with a preference for the tree-covered hills of Arcadia in southern Greece. He became the god of shepherds and goat herds, and so faithful were they to their god that they can still be recognized, complete with goat's legs and horns, in the Christian archenemy, the devil. As a fertility god, Pan was relentless in his courtship of nymphs, one of whom, Syrinx, uh, one of whom, Syrinx, had herself changed into a reed bed to elude him. Pan used those reeds to make the pipes with which his name is still associated, and with which he challenged and lost to Apollo in a music contest. The Athenians later credited Pan with the direct intervention of the Battle of Marathon, Marathon, and the runner, one sec,
I'm back.
Phaedippides, hello, and the runner Phaedippides, who sped to Athens with news of the victory so long that the run distance race is still associated with this feat. Recounted a conversation he claimed to have had with Pan while bringing an urgent message to the Spartans. There's the Furies, or Erinyes, or Dyrene. Vengeance in the world of Greek
I know.
mythology came in abundance of forms. The Erinyes, the angry ones, to give them their Greek name, to the Dire to the Romans, and share their awful origins to the modern word dire. Though Nyx and Hades are sometimes also given as possible parents. Hesiod insists that the Furies were, in a manner of speaking, sisters of Aphrodite, for they too were born of the blood of Uranus when he was castrated by Cronos. Perhaps as a result of this deed, the Furies took as their purpose in life the avenging of crimes by children against their parents, but soon added murder and breaches in hospitality to their portfolio, as well as blasphemy, sacrilege, and other insults to the gods. The retaliation could take the form of madness or illness. Sometimes a whole community might suffer for not having taken action against the offender, in which case the illness could manifest itself as a plague or crop failure, and the madness in an ill-conceived desire, for instance, to invade a large and well-armed neighbor. And yes, the modern fury, as insane rage, comes from the name of these ladies.
Wow, that
While an
seems very
ill-treated
political of current climate.
Hoo boy, the current
Getting
climate is batshit insane, and I'm not going to comment on it.
It's
love you.
really hot.
While an ill-treated parent could explicitly call down the Furies upon a child, it seems the Furies picked up on offences against the gods by default. There were three Furies: Alecto, Tryphophane, or Tisiphone, and uh, Megaera. The playwright Aeschylus saw them as hideous snaky monsters. The Furies are generally depicted as serious young women in black mourning clothes, although, when on the case, they changed into short maiden dresses with knee-high hunting boots and armed themselves with whips. Kinky. Nemesis. The goddess none can escape, the relentless daughter of Nyx, and somewhat broader operating brief than the Furies. She was seen as something of a balance in principle. To counter to that most capricious of goddesses, Tyche, or good fortune. When Tyche bestowed her favors upon the undeserving, Nemesis would follow hiding relentlessly behind the inevitability inflict a corresponding misfortune. She particularly set her sights on the affected with hubris, or overweening pride. In the words of the modern proverb, pride goes before the fall. The ancients expected the fall to be a push by Nemesis, probably over the nearest principality. For example, there was a beautiful young man who was loved by Echo, the nymph who was condemned to repeat everything she heard. Why am I having such an issue reading today?
What do you mean today?
Shut up.
You do kind of have it normally.
Yeah, but I know that, but I don't have it this bad normally.
I do not have an answer for you on that one. Sorry, baby.
The youth was totally uninterested in the maiden, and he rejected her so forcefully that she pined away to nothing but her voice. Enter Nemesis, who cursed the young man so that he fell utterly in love with his own reflection when he saw it in a pool. Unable to
Ah,
tear himself away, Narcissus wasted away at the water's edge. He left behind his narcissistic personality for later psychologists to study, and the flower of and the flower of the same name. The spirit of Narcissus is said to remain at the banks of the river Styx, passionately inspecting its reflection in the water. The Romans called Nemesis Fortuna, and even today many Italians still regard her with deep respect. Another story is Croesus, the fantastically rich king of Lydia in Asia Minor, was aware that his life to date had been inauspiciously fortunate. He attempted to avert Nemesis by losing his favourite ring in the sea. Sadly, when he sat down to a fish dinner a week later, he found that Tyche had restored the ring in the stomach of the fish he was about to eat. Nemesis, meanwhile, had prepared a large invading Persian army to teach Fortune's favourite the true meaning of calamity. In their turn, once they had crushed Corinthius, the Persians were so confident of conquering the Greeks at Marathon that their invasion force brought with them a large block of stone, which they intended to carve into a commemorative statue of victory. The stone was captured when the Greeks routed the Persian army. The only appropriate thing to do with it was make it into a statue of Nemesis, which the Athenians placed in the goddess's temple in Ramos in Attica. Nemesis was also involved in the eventual downfall of the large and successful city of Troy. In one version of the legend, Nemesis was courted by Zeus, but she changed into a variety of shapes to try and evade the god's attention. When Nemesis turned into a goose, her swain became a swan, and in that guise won her heart. The child was conceived as an egg, which hatched out Helen, the most beautiful of mortal women. In this version of the story, Helen, daughter of Nemesis, was adopted by a woman called Leda. However, in more common version, Zeus repeated his trick of seduction by swan with Leda and thus conceived Helen. Yeah, okay. The beaver and lots of sweetness. Helen of Troy had two brothers. Though twins, the pair had different fathers, one human, the other Zeus. This meant that one brother, Castor, literally beaver, was mortal, while the other, Polydeuces, multiple sweetness, was not. Known together as the Dioscuri, the brothers were involved in the most heroic hijinks of their era. They sailed with Jason's Argonauts, took part in the Cladonian boar hunt, and joined the attack on Athens when their sister was kidnapped by Theseus. A feud with another pair of brothers over brides led to their undoing and ultimately to the death of Castor. But in an exemplary instance of brotherly love, Polydeuces offered to surrender half his immortality to his brother, so the pair alternated daily between Olympus and Hades. As Castor and Pollux, the twins were revered battle gods of the Romans, who dedicated one of the major temples in the Roman Forum to their worship. Those born between May 21st and June 21st will have a special bond with the Dioscuri, who make up the astrological sign of Gemini, the twins. The Graces. As we have seen, there are three charities: brightness, festivity, and cheerfulness, or Aglaia, uh, Euphrosyne, and Thalia. They were handmaidens and companions of Aphrodite, who would join them in their dances. The charities, known to the Romans as the Graces, wove the gown of Aphrodite and comforted and pampered her on the Isle of Phosphorus, where she had fled after being humiliated by Hephaestus. The parentage and names of the charities vary according to different sources, and sometimes they number more or less than three, but they always symbolize gentleness, good humor, and fun. The charities were naturally party people, and the ancients often evoked their presence at the start of banquets and dinner parties. The one that everyone mistakes when it comes to hospitals. Asclepius. In the most common version of the myth, Asclepius was the child of Apollo and a mortal woman called Coronis. Yeah, Coronis. Weird. Coronis made the major error of jilting the love-blighted Apollo and added insult to injury by preferring a mortal to the god. Apollo duly smote his faithless lover, discovering too late she was pregnant with his child. Snatched from his mother's funeral pyre, Asclepius was raised by the gentle centaur Chiron. Apollo was a god of healing, and Asclepius followed his father into that profession. He was helped by Athena, who gave him gifts with which he was able to effect miraculous cures. Indeed, even raise people from the dead. This caused considerable ructions for the heaven, as Hades hated it when people left his realm without permission. Consequently, the lord of the underworld made representations to his brother Zeus, who agreed that Asclepius was usurping the powers of his betters, and blasted him to Tartarus with a thunderbolt. Aggrieved, but unable to strike directly at his father, Apollo wreaked his vengeance on the Cyclops, who had made the thunderbolt. This infuriated Zeus still further, and only the pleading of Apollo's mother, Leto, mitigated his punishment. It is believed that Asclepius made his escape from Tartarus disguised as a snake, and in that guise taught healing to man. This is why the serpent and staff have become the symbol of medical profession. Mediterrina, one of Asclepius's daughters, may have given her name to the profession while following the dictates of another daughter, Hygienia. Remains the most effective way of avoiding Mediterrina's practitioners. We can but pray that third daughter, Panacea, who cures all, might also make a reappearance soon. It was traditional for Roman slaves deemed too ill for treatment to be left at the temple of Asclepius of his sacred isle on the Tiber. There's still a hospital there today. The emperor, Claudius, decreed that all who recovered should be free. The Muses. The Muses were the daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne, and, as companions of Apollo, they assisted humans in different fields of artistic endeavor. Their number varies between 1, 3, and 9. And although their place of residence is usually Mount Helicon in Boeotia, they are associated with wells and springs in many other places as well, most notably Delphi and Parnassus, the haunts of their leader Apollo. It was customary to ask the assistance of the appropriate muse for inspiration and give thanks for a successful production. Each of the 9 was associated with a specific era of artistic performance. Calliope was poetry. Clio was history. Euterpe was music and lyric poetry. And I can't say all their names. God damn. Terpsichore was lyrics and dance. Erato was lyric poetry, especially love and erotic poetry.
I bet you'd like that.
Melpomene was tragic drama, where Thalia was comedy. Polyhema was mime and sacred poetry, or cordial song. And Urania was astronomy. Hecata assisted Demeter in the hunt for Persephone, carrying torches to continue the search throughout the night. When Persephone was located in the court of Hades, Hecata found the underworld to her taste and remained to become one of the infernal gods. Such was the character of Hecata that even those accustomed to occasionally bizarre conduct on the part of their gods found her somewhat unsettling. Though Hecata fell, to Hecata fell the supervisions of religious rites, purifications, and expirations. She was often found mediating between mortals and dark forces, such as the Furies or Nemesis, as they relentlessly pursued wrongdoers. Shrines to Hecata were found at crossroads. Crossroads have long been favoured for sites of summonings of demons and meeting of witches, and where murderers and suicides were buried in Britain until the 19th century. So it is appropriate that Hecata was the mistress of the former and patron of the latter. Although some, such as necromancers and those casting spells and curses, sacrificed to Hecata for what she could do, the average Greek and Roman sacrificed to Hecata for what she could not do, or in the hopes that the goddess would order the various malign beings over which she had power to cease blighting the appellants' lives. Hecata was generally accompanied on her nocturnal travels by the Trojan queen Hecuba, who had taken gruesome revenge on the killer of one of her sons after the fall of her city, and whom Hecata had transformed into a black dog. Another familiar was a black polecat, who had once been a witch. Hecata herself could take the triple form of a horse, dog, and lion, and she may have appeared as such at her crossroad shrines with the human form facing in the fourth direction. It was traditional to lay certain foods, honey was a favorite, at the crossroads during the full moon as a sacrifice to Hecata, where the poor generally consumed it on her behalf. Eris, or Discordia. Eris was among the grim brood of Nyx the night. However, so capable and enthusiastic was she in her role as goddess of strife and discord that many called her a sister of Ares. Eris was the goddess of contention, wherever that contention ended in a family spat or full-blown international war. There was also another aspect to Eris, in that she was the goddess who promoted a spirit of competition and rivalry. This could have positive effects. So a poor and lazy man, said Hesiod, might gaze at the rich fields of his neighbour and be encouraged by Eris to get off his backside and make something of his own fields. Or Eris could encourage him to assemble a group of friends to try and seize the neighbour's fields in the name of equitable distribution. It was up to her. Nobody really knew whatever she was thinking. Homer remarked that Eris starts as a little thing, but by encouraging bitterness on either side, she can grow until her head strikes the heavens. By general agreement, the masterstroke of Eris was her response to not being invited to the wedding of Thetis. Thetis, the sea nymph, was a friend and helper to many of the gods, and all came gladly to attend her wedding to a mortal called Peleus. Not altogether unexpectedly, Eris was somehow left off the guest list. After all, who wants strife at a wedding? Unable to enter the feast, Eris lobbed an apple inscribed "To the fairest,"
Oh,
while
I know
carefully not
this
saying
story.
who this was. Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena each claimed the apple, and hundreds were to die besides the walls of Troy before the issue was resolved. You can see now why I kind of love Eris.
I'm just gonna call this Discord. Fuck you. You didn't invite me. I'm just gonna fucking ask a question that no one knows the answer to and just gonna start a
Yeah.
fight. Bye.
Aesop tells the fable of which Heracles was going through a mountain pass, where he beheld what appeared to be an apple lying on the ground. Idly he swung his club at it, and to his surprise, not only was the apple unsmashed by the blow, but it appeared even somewhat more robust than before. Never a man to step back from a challenge, Heracles proceeded to give the apple several hearty whacks from the club which he had previously slain monsters with, and caused the earth itself to tremble. The apple thrived lustily on the abuse. Heracles was not the subtlest of thinkers, but when the apple had grown to the point that it blocked his way, it dawned on him that he had better stop hitting it. Athena, who always had a soft spot for the muscle-bound demigod, appeared to explain that the apple was manifest by Eris, and if you leave a cause for contention alone, it stays small. The more you agitate it, the faster and bigger it grows. So in other words, this guy just went, oh damn, it got bigger when I hit it. I'm going to hit it again. Oh, it got even bigger? Again.
Let me guess. Her main fucking thing is just apples.
Kind of, not really. So the
Wait.
point of the golden apple was that, originally speaking, the golden apple was given to Hera by Zeus to seduce her. She took it as a way for him to say, I'm going to marry you, because in ancient Greece, a common marriage tradition was to throw an apple at a woman, and if she caught it, she wanted to marry.
Movie, catch this.
Ow, stop hitting me with apples.
Catch it for fuck's sake.
Wait. I find it funny that devolved into Christianity saying the apple is the woman's greatest fucking sin in life is just eating it.
In other words, Christianity basically just went, so it's a bad idea for women to marry men. Got it.
Technically, yeah. Don't eat the apple.
So the golden apple was given to Hera as a wedding gift by Zeus, or as a wedding proposition by Zeus. To which Hera then claims golden apples as one of her things, which is why apples nowadays are. It's why it's considered that some of the best apples are called golden apples. They're not, but they have that hue to them, you know?
They're like a
Yeah.
greeny yellow.
Yeah, they're like a greeny yellow.
I've always
Now,
preferred apples, Granny Smiths, though.
yeah,
Like,
but Eris specifically uses the golden apple to piss off Hera, because Hera doesn't know how Eris keeps getting them. That's the entire point. Is Hera doesn't know how Eris keeps getting them, because
she's clearly getting them from the mine shafts that are in Minecraft.
yeah, because the golden apple, and I love this. The golden apple is supposed to be guarded by, I think, 5 nymphs and a dragon.
She just summons another golden apple. Fuck you.
Pretty much.
I feel like her entire shtick is just Hera's hatred of Zeus.
Eh. I suppose the only reason that Hera hasn't divorced Zeus is because technically women couldn't initiate divorces back then. Because divorcing wasn't uncommon. In fact, if let's use Novi and Scarlet here. Novi and Scarlet, they got married, they moved into their house together, whatnot. Yeah, they had 2 kids. Novi went off to war, yada yada. Comes back with a new mistress. Let's pretend it's Restless. Comes back with a new mistress in this case. He can then say to Scarlet, "Go back to your father's house." And that's
No.
it. They're divorced. That's it. They're divorced. Scarlet
No.
has no choice.
I have a choice.
Scarlet has no choice. They're
I
divorced.
have a choice. I
You
have a
have no
choice. I'll fucking murder you.
But that's the point. Is that like divorce wasn't uncommon, but
Yeah,
only men could initiate it.
but wasn't it also just the fact that Hera was supposed to be like of
Well,
marriage?
she's got a
So if she ever got divorced, it would be the opposite of what she is.
kind of, but as you've seen, gods regularly change their portfolios. They regularly alter their portfolios. How they regularly become the opposite of themselves for the purposes of changing things.
It's kind of weird because Hera's is. Oh, I'm just gonna get pissy because my husband had another affair, and like they don't. Not to be a kind of a dick about it, but it seems like Hera's written kind of one dimensionally.
Hera is written incredibly one-dimensionally, but that's kind of the point. You're not supposed to be thinking of the gods as humans with power, because they're not. They are more than.
I still fear her.
Pardon?
I still fear her.
Oh yeah, no, you should fear her.
Between her and Aphrodite are the ones I fear the most.
Then we get to satyrs, or as the Romans called them, fauns.
I had heard that name before, but I didn't know where it had come from and what it meant. So they're basically the same thing then.
Yes. Humans shared the world of myth with many other intelligent species. We
If
have met nymphs, nereids, and titans, all of whom were some degree divine. Carry on.
if I'm correct, isn't one just the male and one just the female version of it?
No,
Oh, because I know one
there
one
are
it's
there are no there are no female satyrs. That's the entire
okay.
point.
Because I know that there was something where it's like there is no this gender of that, and
Yeah,
that's why I was
there's no
asking.
there's no there's no female satyrs and there's no male nymphs or dryads or nereids or whatever, you know. Basically, there are no male nature spirits and there are no female satyrs. Now, I'm gonna go on a quick
Okay.
little rant, and it's something that bugs me greatly. Is that's been like a core rule, because that's been like a thing for thousands of years that there are no female satyrs, to the point that it's a core. It was originally a core rule in D&D as well. It's like you cannot play a female satyr because the law basically states that what satyrs do is they go off into the woods, sleep with a dryads or a naiads for like a century, and then they come back, and the naiad gives birth to a kid, and if the kid's also another like nature spirit, they'll raise the kid. But if it's another satyr, they'll just say, right, go find your father. This is not something I'm dealing with. Go find your father.
Wrong species. Go find your father. I'm not dealing with you.
Like that's the thing. Like that's been a core like thing for D&D. Said like for I was about to say centuries then, but that's been a core D&D rule for like since like second edition, right? And nowadays, all I see is people trying to play female satyrs, and I'm just there like, stop,
Or a
please stop.
suitor.
Or oh gods, I hate that.
I know, I do too.
Like, yeah, sure. Like, I'm fine if you want to play a satyr who, doesn't feel like a guy. That's fine. But just understand the lore first.
Transgender satyr.
That's fine to me. That's fine. Because it does give something for you, like, character-wise to work with as well. So, like, that's fine. I haven't got an issue with it. But straight up wanting to play just a female satyr doesn't work. Sorry, I go on rants about this all the fucking time, like things like this all the time, because yes, it's a fantasy game. Yes, you're allowed to play whatever you want to play
There is
because
a
it's a
reason why
fantasy
I put Hubby rants about Greek mythology in the title.
But like, no, this is less about Greek mythology. This is more about D&D ranting now. Right, I'm going to close the book for. Actually, I'm going to close the book now. I don't know how long the stream's been going on.
About 45.
Oh, sick. Okay, but like, this is generally a thing that bugs me all the time. Is that people always just decide that they want to play shit in D&D without understanding, like, the lore implications there. Yeah, it's fine to play this sort of thing. Yeah, it's fine to play that, but like, you can't really do certain things in Faerun because there are specific rules for Faerun, and Wizards of the Coast and a lot of DMs kind of just go, nah, I don't care. And it's stupid.